You're kind of stuck in the middle of the ocean on a big hunk of metal with all the time in the world to get to know each other. Hello, my name is Jerry, and if you're new here, I make videos about cruise ship life. And I actually work for Disney Cruise Line, and I'm going into my 3rd year of working at sea. And I figured I would share some of my pros and cons that I've personally experienced in case you're thinking about working on a cruise ship. This is like a huge, major life decision that you're making. This is definitely something you should do a lot of research on and a lot of like personal reflection to see if cruise ship life would even be a good fit for you. And obviously with anything that's work or career related, it will really depend on what company you want to work for, what position or department you're looking into, and if you're even able to work on a cruise ship. Working on a cruise ship is definitely not something you can just go to sleep and dream about going on a cruise ship contract and wake up and do it the next day. It's definitely something that is quite the process to get started. Like you have to do a medical, you have to make sure your visas and passports are all good and ready to go. And there's just a lot of paperwork for the onboarding process, but once you're kind of like in the system and you're set, it kind of gets the ball rolling from there. So I'm speaking from a perspective of someone who's in their mid-20s and works in entertainment. So truly, whatever department or kind of field you're looking to go into, I recommend that you research that specific aspect and go from there. Because honestly, like the cruise ship experience is vastly different for everyone. Once again, dependent on what department you work for, what position you have, if you're a higher ranking officer, like it truly is just so varied, and I am just one perspective of many, all right? This is just from my own experience, what I've kind of found interesting, something I've found like a big advantage of working on a cruise ship, and something I've been kind of like surprised or shocked by. So again, take it with a grain of salt and do your own research, okay? So let's get this list started. So the first pro of working on a cruise ship is kind of obvious, and it is the travel and the fact that work is adventurous and fun every day. Like truly, just by the sheer amount of people that you meet on your cruise ship contract, not even just crew, but guests as a whole, you just meet so many different types of people from all around the world. So you get to interact with different cultures, different languages, and different foods, and it's truly just such an interesting experience. Like, yes, you can be in a city and you can be around different cultures and diversity, but on a cruise ship, everything is so tight-knit, and I think you're just exposed to so many more walks of life, and it's just really interesting, and it's truly just so fascinating to be immersed in such a diverse work culture. And of course with travel, it depends on the itinerary that you're on. You get to travel to so many amazing spots that you normally just wouldn't travel to, or wouldn't travel to like consecutively like you are doing. I can't really speak too much on the travel point because the ships I've worked on have primarily been in the Bahamas and a little bit of Mexico. So I truly haven't seen that much, but just from other people's experiences, depending on the itinerary you have, you might see really cool places all over North America, South America, you might see the Caribbean, the Bahamas, New Zealand, Australia, Asia, Europe. There's truly just so many different possibilities for the places you might see. And as much as work is fun and it's amazing that you get to travel while you're being paid, there's still kind of a downside to the whole thing, of course, being that you're away from friends and family for such a long time. A lot of cruise ship contracts can be anywhere from like 4 to 9 months, and even though it can be really great to be experiencing all these holidays and different things like that on the cruise ship, it also means that you're gonna miss a lot of those things back home. Of course, the holidays are really hard to miss out on, weddings, birthdays, just really big milestones in people's lives that you kind of just have to witness from afar, which can be hard, but thanks to Wi-Fi and the internet, like we can kind of still feel connected, but of course it's not the same as being there in person. I'm personally not really like this, but if you're someone who gets homesick really easily, then it can be a really hard time. But you do make friends on board that do become your family. You just kind of have to put yourself out there to this experience. Your friends and family are definitely cheering you on from back home. It is sad that you have to miss out on a lot of special events, but just keep this in mind. You'll be able to tell stories for days and days and days of all the experiences you've had on the cruise ship and traveling, so it'll make it that much more special when you reunite with them at the end of your contract. Another pro, as I've already mentioned in the first point, is is you meet a lot of friends. Because you're in such like a small confined space, you bond with people so much more quickly on a cruise ship than you would on land, just because you are working with each other each and every single day. Plus, you also spend your free time with the same kind of people because you're kind of stuck in the middle of the ocean on a big hunk of metal with all the time in the world to get to know each other. And honestly, like, cruise ship friends are some of the best friends I've made because you meet a lot of like-minded people that love travel, that love to work hard, and also that just know how to have a good time. And I think it also stems from everyone being tired and delirious all the time, that you just build connections much more quickly because everyone understands what you're going through. Everyone understands the tiredness and the exhaustion, and like, we all just try to help each other out and pull the weight. I get really mushy when I talk about this stuff, but it's just so amazing to me when I think about all these friends that I've met from like the UK, Australia, the Netherlands, like all these people I would have never really met unless I worked on a cruise ship. And it's so amazing when you get to meet up in real life off the boat. Like, that is so amazing. For example, this summer actually, I was traveling all over Europe and I was able to meet up and stay with some of my friends, which is just so crazy that when you think about it, once you work on a cruise ship, you probably have a couch to crash on in a lot of countries around the world, which is super, super cool. And it's really hard to describe unless you've like felt it before. The friends you make on a cruise ship truly become family, and it's just so bittersweet when eventually their contract might end or your contract might end and you do have to say goodbye. Or as on Disney Cruise Line, we like to say, see you real soon. And saying goodbye is definitely one of the harder parts of cruise ship life because it happens so often. I truly have never said goodbye so many times in my life until I worked on a cruise ship, because every week or every other week, like, someone's leaving, someone's contract is ending, and you have to just be faced with the fact that, wow, our time here was temporary. Like, I don't know if you're coming back here, if you're gonna be assigned to a different ship, like, I'll not see you again and we won't work in the same setting ever again, because this moment in time on this floating vessel in the middle of the ocean was our temporary moment together. Two people from separate parts of the world came into one place, and that is just so crazy to think about. So yeah, saying goodbye is definitely really, really difficult, but you just get better at it over time, and it's all about just wishing that person well on their next adventure. And it's just amazing to look back on the fact that you were able to spend time with this person and that you were able to make magic together for a short amount of time. I love my friends. And as you can already kind of see, I'm getting like emotional from talking about my friendships and connections I've made on the ship. So I wanted to make my next point the self-growth and development you get from working on a cruise ship. I think back to Jerry before she started working on a cruise ship, like, I feel so different from that person because I've just learned so much about myself and others and how to navigate within this world because I've worked on a cruise ship, and I truly am so thankful for all the experience I've gotten on a cruise ship. I just think it's such an incredible way to look within, but also to look outward and to understand others, and you build a lot of empathy and a lot of thick skin. I think it's also the idea that when you work on a cruise ship, you're going there completely by yourself. Like, for me, of course, like, I went with a cast of people that I already rehearsed with in Toronto, and we go as a cast all together, but just going into the whole process, I'm on my own, and nobody from back home is there. Nobody has these preconceived ideas of who I am. So I feel like I can really truly be myself without the expectations of others. And that's just a really like liberating and freeing feeling, to go into your workplace feeling like you have no other attachments to who people might think you are, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm making sense, but you can just fully be yourself, and that's amazing. A lot of cruise ships also offer advancement opportunities where they offer different trainings and classes to advance your customer service skills or other skills you're looking to improve. And of course, with anything where you're constantly like evolving and improving yourself, there comes a lot of overstimulation and just getting really tired of always trying to be on, if that makes sense. Like you're always trying to be doing your best because you go to work every single day, there's no days off, and you have very minimal breaks to really make sure you're always in a good mindset and you're always ready to learn and always ready to be on top of it and always do your 100% best. It definitely can be exhausting on a cruise ship because you're constantly expected to be performing at such a high level. So over the span of working on a cruise ship for months and months and months, it can be very tiring, and it's really all about the mindset. Like I've said, like you just have to really pull yourself together and make the best out of it, because cruise ship life can be very draining and tiring, but it also is super, super rewarding, and it's unlike any other experience. Like truly, it is such a unique work opportunity. You just become super resilient, and I think that's kind of a superpower. So there might be some rough seas, but you will overcome anything. Another positive of working on a cruise ship is actually that your travel and your medical costs are all covered. So what I mean by that is that the company will actually fly you to the cruise ship as well as fly you back home after you're done your contract. And if you work in entertainment, of course, there's like a rehearsal period involved as well. But either way, the company will always cover your travel, your accommodation, like hotels. And while you're on board, of course, the company has to make sure that you stay healthy, and they have a medical team on board that can help you out when you're feeling sick or you need some medication, or if you even need to see a specialist, they can refer you to someone on land, and it will be completely covered by the company, usually. Like, it's not gonna be the same for every cruise ship, of course, but that's just in my experience how I've seen it happen, is if someone needs help, the cruise ship will help you out. Now, with this travel and everything being paid for, you actually don't have a say of where your assignment is. So you actually never really know where you're going off to next. So it can really catch you by surprise if you're being sent to a ship that you maybe didn't really want to work on, or it's an itinerary that's not favorable, and you have to remind yourself it's still a job. You're there to work. It's not really like a vacation. Otherwise, you would just sail as a guest. So you don't always get to pick where you're being assigned to next, but that's kind of the fun of it too. You kind of get to go on an adventure. You never know what's next. And since you're basically working on a cruise ship and you're living on a cruise ship, you have no commute because you're already at work, basically. So for me personally, I would like get up half an hour before work if I wanted to and get ready and do all my stuff, and I could get to my work location in like 5 minutes, which is pretty great. But since you're at work and you can't really leave work because you're in the middle of the ocean, there's no like turning off from work, if that makes sense. You truly don't get to disconnect and really like deflate from work because you still are at work. So it's really important to practice self-care and find ways where you can still feel like you can kind of let go of the day, whatever happened at work stays at work, and you have your own time now where you can just decompress and still live on even though you're not really working, but you are at work, and it's really complicated. So the whole work-life balance thing on cruise ships is a little skewed, but we're just gonna ignore that part. Another huge plus when you're working on a cruise ship, of course, is saving money. If you're going into a cruise ship contract with little living expenses, maybe you stopped renting an apartment, or you sold your car, or whatever you may have as an outgoing expense, if you don't have that while you're working on a cruise ship, you can save a lot of money. So your living quarters on the ship are provided for, and you live in a crew cabin while you're working on board. And this is all fine and dandy, but the downside to this is that they are really small, and you do have a roommate, so you will likely be sharing a room. Again, depending on your rank or your department or on the company, you will be having a roommate most likely. And this is great. This is like having a built-in bestie, unless you don't get along with them, and then it can kind of lead to some uncomfortable conversations and just some awkward moments maybe. Overall, I've been really, really lucky to have the roommates that I've had because, again, it's basically like a built-in bestie, and we've gotten along great. So it's definitely also kind of nice to have someone there to kind of just talk about your day with and, you know, hear what happened in their day. But even if you do get along with your roommate, like in my case, I loved my roommates, but there's still a lack of privacy and just feeling like you have time alone, which I definitely thought wouldn't be a big issue because I see myself as more of an extrovert. But actually, after working on cruise ships, I really, really value my alone time a lot more. So I definitely have been trying to seek those moments throughout the day where I can just be by myself, do my own thing. Maybe I'll play a video game, or I'll edit a little video, or I'll read something just to kind of get my mind off of work and just focus on myself. In a similar vein of things that are already provided for you is food. Food is free when you're on the cruise ship. Pretty much all crew members, when they work on a cruise ship, will eat at the crew mess, which is like basically this big cafeteria, buffet style type of place where you go to get your food. And because the population on cruise ships is so diverse, there actually ends up being a lot of different cuisines that you're able to try, and it's really kind of neat to try different foods. And a lot of times crew is provided with extra food that the guests didn't eat, or special desserts that the guests didn't eat, and then we get a fun little dessert or 2 or 3. Let me tell you, these desserts go quick. Like, if there's a crowd favorite, you best believe that one's gonna be snatched real quick, and that one will be hard to get. The crew mess is free and provided for. That's great and all, but sometimes you just want something else. So you do have the option, depending on your position, you're allowed to go eat in the guest areas. So that means you can go to the guest restaurants or cafes, and you can get some food there as well. And this can either be for free or at a cost, depending on your ship, your company, your position, your privileges. It's a whole thing. So working in entertainment, I actually had the privilege to eat at the guest buffets for lunch, as long as it's not too busy. And I could also go to the ice cream shop if I wanted to buy myself some ice cream, and that comes at an additional charge, as well as if I put in a dining request to eat at one of the guest restaurants for dinner if I have the time off somehow. And if it's not too busy that night, I can actually eat at the guest restaurants. But for crew, since you're there as a crew member, not as a guest who is paid for this dinner to be included, it usually comes at a cost of like $10 to $20. So it's really, really affordable if you have the time off and if you want to have something different from the crew mess. Now, the crew mess is great and all, but after months and months of having the same thing, the food can just be boring. You know, it can just get really, really boring, because even though they change up the menu and like every day might be something different, they still kind of stick to the same menus week by week, and you might see a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And you know, cooking for such a big amount of people means that the food is gonna be made a little more bland. It's okay at first, but you do kind of develop something called flavor fatigue just from having the same flavor profiles over and over again. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me some broccoli, and the way I would prepare it here at home is I would like air fry it or bake it, but on the ship they usually just boil it because that's just the quickest way to cook broccoli, I guess. And it's just like not my favorite way to have food when it's kind of bland, but that's just what you get, and you kind of get used to it. Like, you kind of make your own bowls and different things. You find your own fun mixes of food that work for you, I guess. So the food can get boring, plus the crew mess isn't always open at the most convenient times, if that makes sense. Like, you are always guaranteed by MLC and by your work schedules that you're always gonna have a breakfast break, a lunch break, and a dinner break. But sometimes you have a really small break, maybe like half an hour, and you don't really feel like running from the forward of the ship all the way to after the ship. Well, do I want to run over to the crew mess and scarf down this food and then go right back to work? It's not always the best situation. The crew mess is usually open at very specific times, at kind of like the most high traffic break points for people, where, you know, there's the lunch rush and there's the dinner rush. And sometimes I would be pretty bad and I would skip lunch or dinner, not because I didn't get the break, but because I just didn't want to run all the way to the after the ship. And I know it sounds really lazy and really terrible, but it's just what I would do. So I would load up on snacks and have my own stuff in my cabin to eat, because a girl's tired. I don't want to go all the way over there. It's a big ship. These are big ships we're working on, so it's like quite a walk to get to like your kitchen, essentially, you know? It's not like just going in your pantry. It's like you have to go all the way aft. And I'm just making excuses now, but you get it. And the final thing I wanted to cover, which is more related to the Disney Cruise Line aspect of it. If you are a crew member on a Disney cruise ship, that of course makes you a cast member still, and you get lots of discounts for the parks, hotels, and food, and different experiences, which is really great. Before working for Disney Cruise Line, I had been to Disneyland a whole 2 times, and I had never been to Walt Disney World. And now, thanks to working on the ships, I've been to Walt Disney World a multitude of times, because I'm able to go in for free essentially. And it's definitely something I don't take for granted. Like, I feel so lucky to have these experiences and to be able to go with friends. And it's truly like just so great that this is a fun perk of the job. But with that also comes the fact that you do have to be an active employee if you want to access these perks. You can absolutely book, let's say, a Disney resort if you want to go after your contract. You just have to make sure that you book everything while you're still on contract, so you're still an active employee, and that way you still can get that fun discount. And if you've seen my previous video, then you would know that I've done a few speed runs at the parks while I worked on the Disney Wish. And as much as that's fun to have like a little morning excursion to the parks before I work in the afternoon, it's still really hard to get everything done in like 3 to 4 hours that you have there. And it's kind of a rush and like it's a bit stressful. So of course I would love to have like an actual like day off to really enjoy my passes to go to Walt Disney World, but you know, you win some, you lose some. But all in all, I'm definitely really grateful that we get all this special discount access to the parks, merchandise, hotels, different experiences. So I would say it's definitely worth it to be a crew member for Disney Cruise Line. And that's all I can really speak on. I haven't really worked on other cruise ships. I'm definitely very interested in watching other people's cruise ship vlogs and see what their lifestyle is like. I would say that cruise ship life is definitely not for everyone. It's not for the faint of heart, for sure, but you do learn so much. And if you're someone who's feeling kind of stuck in their life, or you're just wanting something new and adventurous and fresh and maybe travel and meet people from all around the world, cruise ships are the best place to experience all of this stuff. Even if you just do it once and you just experience it once just to see what it's like, I definitely recommend you try it out. And I haven't really mentioned this, but of course, working on a cruise ship looks really great on a resume. Ever since I've been on land, I've applied to a few jobs just to hold me over till my next cruise ship contract, and I have gotten an interview almost every single time because people are so intrigued by my cruise ship experience. So I guess working on cruise ships just makes you a more interesting person, and people are definitely very curious about this kind of thing because not everyone has had an experience like that. And yeah, that's pretty much my pros and cons list. I could keep going on and on about this, but we're gonna stop it there. So what I can recommend you is definitely look into working on a cruise ship and definitely keep researching to see what's best suited for you. Working on cruise ships can be very tiring, but it's truly so rewarding because you see firsthand that your hard work is affecting someone's life in a positive way. And yeah, let me know if this was helpful, and please give it a like if you think so. And please subscribe if you want to see any more of this cruise ship lifestyle content. Best of luck with all your future endeavors, and bye-bye!